What is up, denizens of the cursed apple? It is time once more to dive into another Deadlock Fight Night presented by Intel. Number 13 already. Lucky number for us because I'm just glad to be here. Jason, good to have you back. We obviously are still in the thick of things. We've just recently had a balance update, which we'll talk about a little bit later. And there's some other tournaments happening around the periphery, which is great. We don't have to carry the Deadlock scene. That's fantastic. With some results, of course, that might be relevant to today's matches in EU. We switched over so you can get to bed at a reasonable hour, mate. How are you feeling?
Yeah, I am really looking forward to going to bed at a normal time. I'm really happy to be back, man. Number 13, like you said, lucky number, but it's hopefully lucky times for some of these teams because we have Pojilaya Skumbriya. I've been missing saying their name, and I never thought I would ever be in that position to say so. And we also have Parivision looking to reclaim their title, man. We have an exciting day of EU matches.
I think our EU teams are absolutely correct. Pojilaya Skumbriya obviously got gutted again to form another EU super team. This is often the way in Deadlock, and they've had to go lick their wounds and reconstruct the roster. We'll jump in and talk about that in a moment. If you're joining us for the first time here at the Deadlock Fight Night presented by Intel, we have a challenger match, a best of one that leads into a best of three against the current King of the Hill. In Europe, that team is the newly crowned or the newly named Virtus Pro. Now, in that best of three money match, there's $1,000 on the line once again because of our thanks over at Intel. And we'll do that every week until we literally fall out of our chairs of old age. At least that's the plan for us anyway. We, of course, have Parivision and Pojilaya Skumbriya, who, like we mentioned, teams that are no strangers to one another, teams that are also competing in other tournaments right now in Europe here. So these are rosters, Jason, pretty familiar with one another.
Oh, man. And the funny thing is, like, obviously, there's still a couple of players on Pojilaya Skumbriya who kind of were on Parivision, who were previously known as DMS. I'm looking at like Wolfie, for instance. He's looking for some redemption here. Obviously knowing a lot about these two teams, and he's going to know a lot about exactly what Parivision might play. But the thing is, like you said, some balance changes coming through, man. Like we did see some changes to Calico. We saw Sinclair get a massive buff, and he was played today over in the one-win Bombshell tournament you're referring to before. So I'm excited to see some Sinclair because I feel like he could be such a good support pick. I know I was talking to Ido. I don't know if he's in chat right now, and obviously RIP to him, that he could be a very good support kind of hero. And we could see him really turn the tides and be like a later pick in the draft to really counter some big ultimates on the other team.
Yeah. I hope he can get unbanned sometime soon. That would be nice. Poor guy. Let's bring in, of course, our esteemed analyst here to help us jump through some of this top of show traffic, especially talking about our current situation of the game and our patch notes. Let's bring in ZP once more. You've managed to scrub the blue off your skin to get ready for the show, which is great. No more moonlighting.
Like a blue man from the Blue Man Group.
Gargoyle.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you know, look, you gotta get the blue away, but, you know, still repping the shirt, which you can't see super well right now, but hey, you know, everyone's getting a little bit of merch. Jason even has a mug that he's showing off. It's great. He wasn't even thirsty there.
Straight whiskey.
That's crazy. I mean, what Jason is doing for the sake of this show is honestly like, it's making me a little bit emotional. Can I see the side of that cup again? The mug? Show me.
Is it the side of the cup you're trying to see or the side of my nose? Because
I mean, I can't miss the latter. Okay, nice. See, we've designed this cup with a little bit of a notch in the edge, so Jason can actually drink from it, which I thought was really thoughtful. Anyway, let's talk about our
Germany specifically for that. They have these Klein glasses where my nose physically not fit in that glass, and I have to get the big one.
The coach glasses, the tiny ones.
I swear they're like this big, and you know what? My nose does not fit in that glass.
That's right.
And
Jason had to drink beer with a straw, folks. It was actually incredible. It was incredible. Can we talk about the patch notes?
No, hold on. Speaking of drinking and clone, ZP. Yeah. No, I'm just kidding. We can move on.
Jeez. That's crazy. Honestly, that's crazy. We just got to show us out. That's a story for a Deadlock Fight Night After Dark. Can we jump into these patch notes again? Because I think Calico was definitely a bit of a menace, right? I think that she could be built so many different ways and was just really impactful. Lately, ZP, we saw her like developed with all of these support items, or at least like these AoE items. I don't know if we got to quite the Torment Pulse level, but we definitely saw like Cold Front picked up on Calico. But now that we got a pretty big nerf on the ultimate and the Leaping Slash.
Yeah, I think here the general idea is, hey, Calico's getting picked a lot. Calico's being used in the high end, the mid end, you know, all throughout Deadlock. Let's tone her down a little bit less damage, a little bit less power in the ult. But I think what's very interesting to me here, especially because in the last few days we've seen Pojilaya Skumbriya play it, is that Sinclair has gotten buffed. Where Sinclair right now is almost, you know, it's more into the support end, as Jason was mentioning, particularly with the changes of Rabbit Hex, where you can have incredible team fight disruption with one playing really good rabbit hex now. It's way bigger AoE. Your early game is a little bit better with better, quicker bullet velocity, and the increased range and audience participation gives you more options to duplicate the right ultimate at the right time. I mean, I look at this and, I'm just curious, is this going to be the night of Sinclair?
I mean, Jason mentioned we have been seeing it get picked, right? Also, audience participation, the duration got halved as well, so that might be irrelevant. It's not a true.
I believe it got full buffed. Did it get buffed and then halved again? I don't remember the exact order.
No, they increased its range, they doubled its range, and they halved its duration.
The duration did get increased, and then the duration got decreased, and they decided that it wanted to be more range. So it's kind of, you get to hold on to it for less, but you get more options on grabbing an ultimate mid-team fight, essentially.
I think the bullet velocity, though, for Sinclair is such a huge change. If you ever tried to last hit with him to get those souls, it is really stupid hard. I swear.
It's like trying to get 4 times as fast now, right?
It's like 400 something speed compared to I feel like it was 65 speed or something like that before. A massive change that allows you to actually be able to last hit properly. But ZP, we did get to see him once played in DFN, and that was played by Saf, if I'm not mistaken, and he played it in a solo lane, and he actually was bowling quite a bit, and they did technically win that match. But it'll be really interesting to see if we do have the likes of Piggy, who I know loves to play quite a few different heroes as support, potentially pick that up.
Also, real quick, real shout outs to Piggy for making it back in the Deadlock Fight Night, where I think it was like either 2 or 3 times where we would invite a team that Piggy was on, and then Piggy would just be off the team. And it's not really by any fault of Piggy. It's just fate was conspiring to simply not let Piggy play. But Piggy has made it in. He's locked in. He will be playing today. So we get another
any last second changes, ZP. And we could get a notice like in 2 minutes from now, like actually we're changing Piggy for someone else.
That'd be wild.
Let's jump into talk about his rosters a little bit in this matchup. Then we've got have a bit of a look. Also, like Mild Nurse to Holiday. We'll see if that comes up. Also, rate changes. Let's talk about Parivision here. They, of course, we've seen them in our challenger maps on multiple occasions. Just as Jason tends to feel like Aegis Aurora is utterly washed, Parivision were able to hand them a 2-0 in the one-win bombshell group stage. So they've definitely lived up to that title so far. This is a fun team to watch, right? I personally enjoy Play With Me and Prestis especially, right? Like Prestis is so good with like those airborne heroes. This is a really solid team.
So does my dog, apparently. I don't know if you heard him just bark when you heard talking about Play With Me. I mean, for me, ZP, Play With Me has been one of the most unique and fun players to watch, not to shill out for him, as much as I really want to, but he was one of the first people, if not the first people, to pick Haze and show what Haze can truly do with the hopping between like lane 2 and lane 1, going from the duo to the solo lane, soaking souls initially when that was a thing. And we got to see him really develop his own kind of style. However, I feel like he has kind of stagnated a bit because some of the picks he's been going with lately just have not seemed to work out for him.
Yeah, I mean, Play With Me has kind of been all over the place hero pool wise, and part of that is that there's been times where Parivision really hasn't valued things like Wraith, so Play With Me hasn't gotten to play Wraith as often. Haze, even when it is a very big comfort pick for Play With Me, isn't necessarily the best meta wise. I will say, though, when I look at the roster here, I think about impact players for Parivision. I don't think you could say enough good things about Tass, where, there's a lot of ways to express yourself in the playmaker role in Deadlock. Anyone that's, in the hero pool realm of, running Paradox, Pocket, that sort of hero pool, right? And Tass is one of the very best at just simply rotating around, right place, right time. Back when double soaking was a thing, Tass would basically be ahead of anyone, regardless of the game. And it'll be interesting to see what Tass ends up on here in this first match, if they give up Paradox or not. But you think about keys to defeating Parivision. You could talk about Play With Me all day and all night, but I always look at Tass and go, he's just always efficient, always good.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I feel like Tass, he's played a plethora of different heroes as well for Parivision, whether it was under the Parivision name or under the DMS name. Or I can't even remember if he was on DMS or Pojilaya Skumbriya before this. Either way, he's played a Paradox 11 times, but he has played a total of 9 different heroes so far, and he truly can be a playmaker. For me, I'm also looking towards, if we're maybe when I talk about the highs, but also maybe some of the lows of the team, I feel like Prestis hasn't really hit his stride yet within this roster. I know he initially came out as being like a Grey Talon player, and he put on a pretty good showing the first time we saw it when we had the Grey Talon buffs, but he hasn't been as solid as a player that I wanted to see just yet. And I don't want to be too critical or too negative, but I feel like there's more he can provide. And when he can hit that stride, I feel like Parivision is easily, or could easily be the best team ahead of Virtus Pro.
And if you're an Ivy fan, this is a roster to watch as well, because Litz is basically trying to lock that Ivy in at any opportunity. Let's move along, though. We've talked about Parivision. Let's talk about their opponents here. Pojilaya Skumbriya. Now, give me the skinny, because this is a team, obviously they were, gutted to fuel some of these super teams in Europe, but they've now come back together. They're ready to throw down. If you want to talk about recent results, they actually split a series with Virtus Pro in the one-win Bombshell tournament, which is pretty impressive. So they've managed to get themselves, I think, a draw and a win so far there. These guys already looking like they hit the ground running.
Yeah, I think we look at Pojilaya Skumbriya, obviously the only holdover from the old Pojilaya Skumbriya before half the team went to go make the super team in Parivision, the team basically designed to try and contest Virtus Pro. Wolfie is still on the team, but Piggy is there, where, people may forget Piggy was previously on Virtus Pro when they were Buff Enjoyers, right? So you're at the point where you're getting a little bit of recycling of talent in the EU scene as you remake stuff. Jamside, of course, very well known for streaming in the EU community, was a player that we saw a lot in, early Deadlock competition. I think got off teams for a little bit and now is back in. At times was like a very, very good carry player. So you sort of again have a team here where they had to retool a lot, but you do have some known quantities at the very least. And honestly, I do think like when you look at Piggy's impact in the support role, regardless of what team Piggy has been on, it's usually quite good. So it doesn't surprise me that they're able to even take a map off Virtus Pro recently.
Yeah, and I'm also like looking over towards Wolfie in particular, because like on DMS he was like the solo lane player. He played a lot of pocket, he played a lot of 7, and for instance we saw Zergy play a ton of 7 as well. But we've seen a lot of teams really move away from him just because, in my opinion, he kind of comes online a little bit too late for how these games have been going. You need someone who has a little bit more impact earlier on. So I want to see like how Wolfie's going to be able to really play around this matchup early on, because I feel like Parivision, their strongest part of the game is that early game, because they always seem to punish everyone when it comes to like ganks and early pressure.
Just so people know, I know they're watching the stream, we love our new roster graphics. These are not the results of the pick and ban. These are just heroes that we associate some of these players with. They're not fully accurate. For example, Wolfie, I don't think you've ever seen Wolfie play Ivy, which I think Picky's enjoying in the chat there. But again, so we haven't gone through our draft quite yet, folks. This is just a way for us to dive you into what to expect from this matchup. I think we should really be going back to the era of really competitive games in EU. We've got 3 very quality teams here, and I'm curious to see how Virtus Pro kind of fights off the potential opposition as we go in. We're going to be jumping into our 1 versus 1 for side selection here. For those that are new to Deadlock Fight Night, we make them Mo 1v1. I meant it, Mo. Not Mo and Krill. So we're going to be jumping into that very soon, and then we can talk a little bit about the pick and ban. Here we go, folks. We've got Taz, I think, in the blue. Let's see him
I think I just had a
throw
great
down.
idea, Mitch. What if we had Moes? Or yeah, so Krills are fighting. We have Moes all around the edges, just watching as spectators. If we can make that work somehow, that would be pretty cool. The whole signs like DFN and stuff like that.
Throwing coins and stuff.
Should have go type that in the brainstorming channel real quick. No, it looks like Saint did win that one. So Pojilaya Skumbriya winning out when it came to the 1v1.
I like that. Baits parry out of Taz there and waits it out. Beautifully done.
What I love with the Mo 1v1s is that the meta just continually evolves in what we've been seeing, where I just feel like the Mo 1v1s are actually getting longer. It's almost feeling like real boxing with how long the players are feeling each other out with EU and NA. And I've actually gone out of my way to try and not spoil myself on this anymore.
Oh, are you not looking at the draft graphic anymore?
No. I've never looked at the draft, but I used to be the person recording the Mo 1v1s, and we've changed up. I don't see the Mo 1v1s.
I see. All right, let's jump into our pick and ban here, of course. Obviously, Pojilaya Skumbriya will have the side selection, so that means the first pick goes to Parivision, if I'm not mistaken. Here are your bans coming in. We can start jumping in and discussing it. So, no surprise. Oh, wow. Okay, are we banning Sinclair straight off the dome? That is a huge shift.
I think that's really interesting, CP, because we see Vindicta, Paradox, like 2 of our most highly prioritized bans coming out of these teams. If you're throwing Sinclair into the mix now, if he's a viable threat, that really makes the draft very interesting now, considering what they're going to leave open and what will potentially be taken away right off the bat.
Yeah, I mean, as you said, it leaves more of your power heroes available, but also it's a fact that Pojilaya Skumbriya has been using Sinclair the good effect recently, and I think if you're Parivision, this is a very recent change, right? Like, this just happened in the past, day. You feel like you don't really want to go against this. Your prep really hasn't given you enough time to, look at Sinclair, and if it's an X factor where you feel like you can win no matter what, you don't want to deal with it in a best of one, right? A best of one leaves you very little margin for error. If the Sinclair just ends up being way more than your strategy was looking for, you get rid of it. And in return, though, it does mean you're going to be giving up a little bit of meta power.
Yeah, I mean, there's Wraith that can easily be taken up right away. Vindicta can be taken right away, but we obviously do. Okay. As I say, we do know, obviously, Great Talent can be played by Parivision as well. But, I mean, Viscus, I mean, he's kind of come into his own the last few weeks, I would say, as being one of the most hotly contested picks when it comes to EU.
This is also a Parivision's favorite. Their most picked hero. They always seem to try and pick up the Viscus. And because of the Sinclair ban, I think Pojilaya Skumbriya not being first pick, they actually had to ban out the Paradox that Taz otherwise would have loved to play. I think he's got 11 matches on record in EU playing that hero.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense to get rid of it and not let Taz get the Paradox. But now you take a look here at what's coming down the pipe is that you're giving Pojilaya Skumbriya the Wraith. And in terms of what they're going to pick here, I still think Calico is going to be a pretty highly valued pick. I mean, Calico got nerfed, but I don't think Calico got nerfed to the point that you're not going to see teams regularly mix her in as a frontliner. I think her kit overall is still generally too powerful. Now, whether she gets picked here or not will be interesting. And instead, though, it's going to be Pocket, which, you know, Jason, I can sort of see it, especially if they're trying to pick it for Taz, but it's a little early for my tastes.
I'm not really the biggest fan of Pocket lately, and I don't really know why. I just feel like there's so many better heroes that could be picked with a higher priority than a Pocket, because he's not so heavily contested. Obviously, you want to pick a Pocket like when the other team has a Kelvin, for instance, because you get really easy ult setups. But I don't know. I feel like you could easily go for like something else that would be a little bit more contested, like a Geist, to give you a little bit more of a tanky front line. I know Mo and Krill's been kind of a hotly contested pick for Pojilaya Skumbriya as well, though I don't think Parivision is necessarily going to pick this one up. But also Warden, we've seen constantly being played these last few weeks.
Lady Geist logged in here for Parivision, so they themselves really want to try and sneak that away. She's been moving up the pick order, I've noticed, over the last couple of weeks here. So team's definitely starting to favor the Geist. They've only picked her once, and they won that game. So good to see the Geist make the way in. Mirage here seems like a pretty reasonable pick. So Viscus, we still don't know really what their intent and the build is going to be with this Viscus quite yet. Is there an opportunity to punish like an early Pocket pick here from Pojilaya Skumbriya? It is one of their preferred solo laners for sure.
Well, in terms of Viscus, the reason why teams are picking Viscus is that Viscus is just kind of good at everything right now. Where, I mean, in EU, it's still kind of played more as a frontliner, but you still see Viscus being roamed actively, more playmaking style, and also just high on damage at the end of the game. I mean, Viscus is kind of a powerhouse, but okay, the Calico comes in maybe a round later than I would have expected from the get-go here. But yeah, so you might look at the Calico nerfs and be like, oh, Calico got nerfed. Not too much. I think all day long today, very likely to be picked in the first and second round, especially as EU tends to value the frontliners a little bit more.
And let's not forget, last week, Listic from Virtus Pro showed us a phenomenal Calico with the roaming potential. He was more of a tiger than he was an actual cat, I swear, because he was assassinating people left and right. And one of those players was Prestis, actually, so he knows definitely how not to handle a Calico. But with a haze ban coming in out of PS, I mean, I don't know if it's ban worthy with still so many heroes available. Again, like Vindicta's free. Yeah.
Okay. What about play with me's hero pool? Does this really
Warden
bother?
Probably.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, Warden would make sense. Also, I mean, there still has been picking Haze like more than you would expect at the current time. So yeah. And also, as I say that, Haze gets banned. So yeah, banning Haze makes all the sense in the world. And now for Parivision.
Well, does it though? Does it? I mean, because if he plays Haze, right, like you kind of already know what you're playing into with this. Yeah. He has to get unstoppable to really be like a massive presence. You kind of know what he's going to do early on. Is it ban worthy in your opinion, ZP, over something like a Great Talent to target Prestis potentially?
I think the reason why you banned it is that they've had scrims almost certainly, and just overall historical playing against Play With Me on the Haze. You just know that it's a hero that Play With Me is like super comfortable on, gets more of it than the norm, and you figure you'd still rather just put Play With Me on a different hero, change the game plan up a little bit, especially in a best of one.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen Parivision really try and pick that up as often as they've been able to. In all the games in the one-win tournament they've had that Haze so far, they've won them. So definitely Pojilaya Skumbriya trying to avoid that. Bebop getting picked up here. Okay. In response to what?
Oh, I mean, well, first of all, I think he's like one of the lowest picked heroes when it comes to EU. He's been picked 3 times across our 13 DFNs now, and only Sinclair is below him at 1, which is kind of funny. But the thing is, I feel like Bebop just gives you the ability to, it's kind of like a Hail Mary that if you get a good hook, even though they have a Viscous, you get a good hook, you can get a good kill, you can potentially snowball the fight off of that. How it fits with their comp though, that I'm a little bit more curious about, because you do have like good burst damage with Calico and Wraith and even Pocket in there.
My bow is yours.
Okay, that's why.
Yeah, I don't know.
What I was going to point out is that if they decide to go with the Grey Talon, then Bebop, of course, is one of the characters that can ground Grey Talon a little bit more easily. And just team comp wise, you had to wonder, okay, what is Prestis going to play here? And the point I was going to raise is that, well, it would either be the Viscous being played by Prestis or likely Saf playing the Viscous, right? So the fact that we have Grey Talon getting picked here kind of illuminates what's going to happen. It's going to be Saf on the Viscous and then Prestis on the Grey Talon. And Pojilaya Skumbriya, they kind of figured that was coming and decide, hey, we're going to invest in the Bebop because we know you're going to pick this.
And still Parivision completely unfazed by the Bebop pick. They just take Grey Talon quite happily. So clearly they don't seem to feel like it's going to be as lethal as to the Grey Talon as Pojilaya Skumbriya do.
I mean, looking at their comp right now, I feel like Parivision just hold W into them, and they're not really going to be two-phased. Like, there's really no front line to stop them. You just have Bebop to just worry about his hooks. Whereas, like, Geist, Mirage, Warden can all charge, and Viscous can all charge straight into them. At least with the Abrams, it kind of somewhat deters you because you can obviously go for the charge. But I don't know. I feel like PS just aren't really, they don't really have like a great comp to deal with Parivision who could just snowball a fight and create that space for Grey Talon or for Prestis to play from.
Parivision probably rounds us up with Kelvin here, if I had to guess. You take a look at what they're at. Kelvin isn't banned. Kelvin's still available. Kelvin would make sense to be their final pick. But yeah, I mean, you look at the frontline situation, I don't think it's that bad for Pojilaya Skumbriya, just because of the fact that I think Calico is still absolutely ridiculous in the front line. I don't think the nerfs changed a whole lot. So I think a lot of the frontline game is really going to depend on economy allocation as we go up here, right? Particularly when you're running with the Abrams, probably the most volatile frontliner in the game in terms of either being a huge impact player or, you know, an Abrams that's like 3 or 4K behind and doesn't do much.
Yeah. So we've really seen both sides of that coin, especially with Abrams's play rate in NA. Players like Yonkak often try and do secures, and we've seen them, have a lot of success, like roaming, and obviously, combining the paradoxical swap, with the charge on occasion here. Obviously, that's not an option for PS, but plenty of lockdown ability on this team in terms of what Bevol, Abrams, and Wraith can provide you respectively. So,
I will say this. Sorry to cut you off. I'm looking at PS, right? They have a very, I think, strong early game with their ganks. Like, Ivy gets 3k souls, can just show up in your lane, silence you, and then you could potentially be screwed with the gargoyle lane on top of you. Bebop can roam early on with the hook, especially if you play like Hoot did. We saw from Maidong, I believe, just last week, or is it 2 weeks ago? I can't remember now. Went for very early hooks. Calico can do that as well. So a lot of these side lanes for Parivision are going to be under a lot of pressure. And I think PS, if they can get a good start like that and really get their solo lanes going, I think they have a very like legitimate chance to take this.
Yeah, I mean, as I look at this, Jason, in the breakdown, I think you're absolutely right, particularly when you think about how Calico's been being played in the EU, right? Where Calico's been played ultra mobile. I mean, it was the most roaming I think I've ever seen Listic do in my life as far as Deadlock play goes, right? So you run Calico, that's a huge threat in roaming. You run Bebop, that generally likes to roam. You have Pocket and even Wraith, where as far as carry heroes go, Wraith can also be very mobile and a threat to go around. I think this entire lineup that Pojilaya Skumbriya is playing basically sets them up where they need to get ahead in the first like 8 to 15 minutes, I would say. If they don't get ahead, I think the late game scaling of Parivision just runs them over.
I miss having Pojilaya Skumbriya here as ZP because the amount of times you say their name differently, just it's great
it's
to
not
hear.
just me.
Pojilaya
It's not just me.
Skumbriya.
It's like it's half our broadcast talent, to be clear.
You and Dan?
That is half.
That is literally half.
Yeah. Sorry, Jason. He's got you on that one.
You got me there. You got me by the numbers.
What does it mean? To remind you, it means Elder Mackerel, right?
Yeah.
Elder Mackerel. Brilliant.
Yeah. Big fan of that name. I'm glad that they've stuck to it though as well. They're becoming quite recognizable in this world. And it's good to see them back, of course, after reforming to quite a degree. We're jumping into the game very, very soon, folks. Just one more minute to get our rather slow players ready to throw down and get this game on. Again, like frontline wise, we've got the Mirage Warden, we've got the Viscous here for Parivision. I'm curious to see the Bebop. That the fact that it preempted a Grey Talon pick means that these teams have been playing against each other a lot of experience dealing with the proclivities of each other. And it's always fun to see that play out in game. Two teams with a lot of experience. And again, always seem to give us a good show, no matter what permutation the Pojilaya Skumbriya roster is going to be in. We're headed into our first game, folks. This is our Challengers game. The winner will advance to fight for $1,000. That's right. Virtus Pro awaiting in that best of 3 match. Let's head to the Cursed Apple now. And we're going to be rolling out here with Pojilaya Skumbriya.
One thing
Yes,
I'm really... No.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna. I'm really curious to see lane-wise in the beginning is just
Exactly.
do you shift the Viscous to the Bebop lane? It's like one of the most common lane shifts you will see if teams do early shifts, just because a Viscous Cube is like one of the main ways of just preventing Bebop from getting value in the first 5 minutes of the game.
Well, I mean, I wanted to see exactly how these lanes play out, but one thing we're seeing here, ZP and Mitch, is that we do have 2 players for Parivision early on in lane 1. We saw Kelvin immediately head over there to play with me, which I'm assuming is going to be on the Warden. So let's going to go back to lane 2. So they kind of preempted the potential swap coming through, like you were kind of saying before, Mitch, about these teams obviously scrimming each other a bunch and kind of have a really good insight to how they might play.
Already this harassment being put down by Litz, of course. The Frozen Beam just trying to make so Alex can't do too much pushing up here. You can see now we have our lane assignments for you properly. So together we'll be going up against Wolfie on that lane number 1.
Yeah, and
so
I
it is
think,
together on Warden.
Yeah, and together on Warden, this is going to be my final point here before letting you guys get into it, but watch lane 1 here, because Pocket versus Warden isn't the easiest thing for Warden overall, even though Wolfie's kind of, again, handed to him right now, but the level of ganks that may come in with Calico being a threat, potentially very, very high. Together is going to be gank priority number 1, I feel like, for Pojilaya Skumbriya.
And on that note, though, if we do see lane 2 consistently pushed up here, ZP, I don't think Calico or Alex is going to have the opportunity to easily go for these ganks. And I talked about this before with some other teams, like this pressure that they're applying in lane 2 is not allowing those ganks to happen, at least just of yet.
Yeah, we are not seeing, though, the Viscous matchup against the Bebop in the same lane like we had mentioned. There are ways around it, of course. I don't know if Reactive Barrier is really worth it anymore. It's obviously a more expensive item, and it does answer the threat of that Bebop. We got Play With Me is actually in the duo lane here. We're just going to add that high velocity mag, of course, to the 0-point ward. And very standard early gun items here for this Mirage. Also, obviously playing the duo lane means that he can head out of there with the Traveler without giving up a huge amount of farm. Allow Prestus just to hang around and pick it up.
I'm also looking over towards lane 4 because I did not expect to see Saf going to be on the Grey Talon, and he's going to be in the solo lane up against Jamside, up against the Wraith, and Grey Talon has insane burst. So, and you have the ability to obviously poke very far from range with your charged shots. So it could be a very explosive lane for Saf to kind of deal with the damage that Jamside could do early on. And I'm actually a big fan of this. I was expecting Prestus or at least Geist to be there in lane 4, but a little bit of a switch up.
Yeah, a bit of a different assignment. Oh, that's nicely done. I mean, this lane pairing, the Viscous and the Kelvin, is so good for locking down one of those players or punishing an over position. Alex goes down. Tassel's given up here, but it's a 2-for-1 trade ultimately in that lane number 2 favoring Parivision. China's Cloak thrown forward here, but together not too bothered. This matchup here between the Warden and the Pocket actually sees Wolfie getting a slim soul lead.
You know, it's kind of funny. I wanted to criticize Parivision before we went into this match about kind of like the hero pools of the players. It's kind of like standard, like 2-3 heroes that they all seem to play. Whereas you look at maybe like likes of Virtus Pro, and they have a very deep pool. They're not really bannable because they're just going to play whatever they need to against you. Nice little hook in the meantime, though, on a Press is going to be locked under the Garnet with a nice parry to actually stop from hitting him. The distance not going to be created, 125 HP and a Dream, and he will just barely escape here. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like they don't really have that deep of a pool, but showing that together is going to be on Warden, seeing Saf playing Grey Talon, I think this is a little bit of a step up for them, and they're seeming to grow as a team.
Yeah, I mean, there might be some growing pains in the meantime, though. Saf loses out to Jamside there, who is one of the first, to build their ultimate. Litz actually has that Frozen Shelter active as well, so a window here for Parivision at least to keep that pressure on in lane number 2, and that does seem to be the order of the day after that double was picked up.
Look at lane 3. Jamside trying to go for a gank here with the telekinesis because he had it online in such a massive lead over Saf, but he's extremely low in health, and he'll be forced to back away, which does buy some time for Saf to catch up because I think he was down under 2,000 souls compared to the 3K at a Jamside.
It's tough to gank that Geist, honestly, but this is the window before she has that soul exchange available. Awkward here for together. Cubed, though, as Taz comes to the rescue and ends up dealing with Wolfie. Nice little rotate there out of lane 2 for Parivision. So making some pretty big moves. Just after Pojilaya Skumbriya had an unsuccessful rotate from 4 to 3, they held together. Now get a bit of an edge, or at least catch up in that matchup against the Pocket.
I'm just trying to see if they're going to stick to some of these lanes here, as we still have Tass and together in lane 1. As you can see, Alex going to be rotating back over, it looks like, to lane 2. I mean, when these ultimates are online now, this is where I'm like really starting to see, expecting to see some plays happen. But one thing that does kind of concern me is Saint seems to have fallen like pretty far behind his teammates compared to the other side. I mean, it's only a 1K difference, but you look at Litz, he's at 4K compared to Saint, who's at 3.2.
Timing not quite there with the leaping slash as the cube was still active for Taz. Though Alex trying to push some of that pressure back now. Already, this is like Taz's second foray over to this side of the map. The goo ball is going to allow him to get away. Okay, a lot of pressure. Yeah, those gloom bombs being lobbed in the direction of together, and they do need to respect back away. And I don't know if they've noticed the viscous here. Yep, they have. Okay, starting to rotate back over towards that lane 2. So Bandwise going to be aware of this now as Abrams is going quite low. I think Alex might actually have to get here. They're able to escape. Yeah, so despite that early warning, the Viscous coming, Bandwise takes a ton of damage, has to give up that space. And yes, the oppressive Arctic Beam is always going to be there for Litz.
Yeah, I believe Bandwise hit a charge on the Litz, but I mean, it's a Kelvin. He's going to heal up a lot of this damage. I actually want to see if he did go for Infuser. I've seen a lot of Kelvins lately go for Infuser because with the Arctic Beam, it does a ridiculous amount of damage. And of course, you're healing yourself at the same time while doing it. As we do see him go back in, and it looks like it's just going to be a little bit of poke here and there.
That's a nice puddle punch. It might be more than just a bit of poke. Return to Shadows has to be used here by Alex to get away from that. They actually go in with like a leaping slash cold front. So it looks like they were trying to start something off, but I don't think they intended to stay in the fight that entire time. Awkward stuff here. Here's Wolfie just blows together up. Looks like that barrage catch-on was all he needed.
He's done that quite a few times in lane, where he uses the satchel plus the, I can't remember the name of that ability. The cloak, there we go. The satchel, the cloak, and of course his cold front to just burst down as much damage as possible, because we've seen together playing so aggressive every single time we ever look at this lane. A little bit of a hyper beam comes out, not really doing too much though, unfortunately, for a Saint.
They were, yeah, that's the risk. You sort of dangle yourself there in midair, and Play With Me can get some pretty good damage on you as the Mirage eventually chunked Saint down. Might have been the Jin's Mark. Rock on maximum stack there. Okay, here's the hook. Turn around. Knock him up. Under the Guardian. Cold front used. There's the cube. That is, of course, what you try and use to get people out to safety. But this is scary for Litz. And, well, Frozen Shelter was not available. Nice little roam gank there for Saint.
Yeah, and this is the impact we were looking at a Saint to have when it comes to a Bebop. And it is kind of almost required a little bit. I feel like if you do have a Bebop who's not pulling off assists with these hooks, then you kind of have like a 5v6 at some points. And obviously later on, you hit one big hook, it's not going to matter in the end, because that can be the hook that wins you the game, especially with these like insanely long respawn timers. But somewhat of a dive coming on the lane 2, and also at the same time, Jam side getting extremely low here. The out is up for Saf. He, I think, is low enough to be finished off, but you know what? Doesn't need it. Just uses his fist.
Okay. So Saf sees an opportunity. I think Jam side pushes up and tries to telekinesis the Grey Talon, and then turns his back and goes to farm the creeps under his turret. The problem is the wave is pushing against Jam side when he tries to start that fight. Saint, I don't know if he expects the Grey Talon to turn around on him like that. That's dirty.
That man's got a third eye. I swear, like, holy hell. I didn't expect him to do that much damage, but again, like, that's how bursty a Grey Talon can be, and that's where we're seeing him be so like prioritized in some of these picks.
Look at this build here for Alex. He actually has restorative locket there as well, so all that extra sustain. Of course, melee lifesteal. The other items are pretty standard alongside the cold front here, but yeah, really expecting to be in the thick of things quite often, so looking to get a lot of value.
I don't know if ZP's here right now, but if he is, I want to ask him a question. Restorative locket, I think, is one of the most underutilized items and one of the most overpowered items in the game right now. What do you think?
I think that's always been the case, and I think in pro play we've kind of had this dynamic where we'll enter eras where half a team will get locket, but then it'll go to the wayside. It's like people realize it's really good, but then something else takes their attention in the item meta and they stop building it. But its playmaking potential and its ability to make people misread when they have the advantage is second to none.
Yeah, I mean, the amount of heal that you can sort of get, because it's not over time, right? It's pretty instant, I'm pretty sure. So yeah, it does turn fights on their head pretty quickly. Nice little TP out there by Saf as the Lagoons were about to turn up.
And I kind of like how ZP mentioned, like it really lures you into a false sense of security, not realizing like how big of that heal can actually be, how quickly it charges up as well. And when you're at this pro level, I mean, you're looking at like a couple of missed shots or like a sliver of HP difference, and that could be a kill or a miss. And that's how low these fights come down to.
It's like half your health bar. It's like 500 health. It's 32 per stack and 15 max stack. So it's actually a ton of healing. Yeah. Really clutch.
Especially if you're like a Calico, for instance, like you want to dive, you want to get really aggressive. You have, you know, Return to Shadows, which already is a free ethereal shift and kind of baits people into trying to commit onto you. And then you also come out of that, you can lifesteal with your slash, and then you just pop the locket, and guess what? You're back to like 75% HP. It's crazy.
All right. So, pretty close game here, all things considered, but there is a Guardian down. Although all of Pojilaya Skumbriya's Guardians got pushed down in that exchange here. So, a little bit scary. Parivision scaling up their map control. You can see them really starting to inch forward a little bit. Obviously, there is an urn on the field. As we've seen all these stuff spawn in now. 10 minutes into the game. Long range attempt there at hook there by Saint. But again, just looking to open up an opportunity here in lane 2.
Can we, if the observers are listening, hopefully one of them is not the stinky one. Can we check out Prestis really quick? I'm sorry, that's just an inside joke I have with one of our observers. Because I want to see what Prestis actually maxed ability-wise. We've seen a big difference in EU. A lot of the guys max their life drain, whereas in NA, we're seeing a lot of them max their bomb. And we are seeing a little bit of a mix between the life drain and the blood shards. And it looks like the bomb, actually, it's pretty much equal between all three of those. So yeah, he's not really heavily focusing into one of those.
Interesting. Okay, yeah, we're actually just having our points evenly distributed through them. Nothing too crazy itemized. Berserker and, of course, the kinetic dash here picked up for the Geist. So, fairly straightforward. Obviously, the bullet life steal is a pretty important part of her kit. Allow her to work down some of these camps and opponents a little bit more safely. Hold on, what's going on here? Wolfie having a back array. Does get some good barrage connections, but never had an opportunity to go for the Affliction. Definitely been chased down now as Prestis turns up. Affliction does get popped. Can he get into the satchel just in time? But God, there's just too much damage. And now Prestis, of course, would have had a soul exchange where it needed. It wasn't. Last stand going to come in now. Put together. Who's there to be fighting? Yeah, the Calico I see. Spotted out now. It's going to be a little bit dangerous for Alex, but Play With Me still got brought down. That last stand has now expired. In the meantime, Saf and Prestis getting busy.
Yeah, no stamina for him to continue to jump up. And a big little play here for Parivision. They get themselves 3 kills. Mid-boss, not something to be going for when you do have, of course, Abrams up. And with his ultimate, he can potentially steal it away from you. But this is what I was kind of, expect to see out of Parivision as they transition from the early game to mid game, is like, who's going to get that first nice little bit of an edge, that first big, quote unquote, big team fight. And with those 3 kills coming through, only losing 1, it's a very good sign. And where the soul allocation is as well. I mean, look at Saf, 12K. He's leading the squad. And on the opposing side, Jamside is keeping up at 12K himself. So it comes down to, in my eyes, like, how can those 2 players interact with these team fights? Because I feel like the game is so even at the moment that you're going to need those players to win out.
I think they're trying to catch on to Litz here. Looks like Pirates want to come forward. Here's a hyper beam though from Saint. Well, forget about that. Maybe next time.
It was more of a meh beam, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. That is an old Oriana reference. I'm pretty sure I remember that. Not bad. The meh wave.
Did I say? I probably said that. I don't know.
Was that you? It was LCSU. I think.
I was on LCSU.
Oh, really? Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sure you were too.
Like, 30 years ago, back when I was, 20.
Yeah. Damn. That's crazy, bro. Casting with a 50-year-old? It's kind of weird.
I think you had better hairline back then. I need something new. I can't keep going on the hairline on you. It's just, it's not fair, and it kind of becomes boring.
No, it's fine. I mean, it would be worse if yours wasn't creeping up real quick, just quietly.
Hey, I have a vacation to Turkey coming up, so.
Ah, yes, I see. Hair transplant capital of the world is Piggy, of course, forced into the stone idol as the pressure's coming towards him here in this lane number 3. We're going to group up. The Grey Talon is here, crucially. Saf definitely looking pretty threatening. Wolfie trying to shove back on this, though, but just need to respect the damage that Mirage can put out. Playing With Me is not messing around.
One thing I do worry about, though, is that we have TAS still kind of in solo lane here, and I'd honestly like to see him swap out with someone else, just because of those hooks at this mid-game point can be even more impactful, I'd say, than late game when you're typically more grouped up as a 6-man or 5-man squad. And having him there, it's like a free get out of jail card that if someone does get hooked in, realistically, you're probably going to save them, potentially turn the fight around, as you do see the Majestic Leap come forward here, and Wolfie's looking for some damage, but it's a Geist, man. You're not really gonna do too much to her.
Yeah, I mean, just tough, I think, to burst the guys down. Precious didn't have Soul Exchange available in fairness, so I suppose there was a window, but it's a tough one. Some of those ultimates are going to be timed by these teams, like as if they were like large buffs that they're trying to keep track of here. But they want this Walker in this lane number 4. I think they realize it's only Piggy that's around here. Piggy very, very low. Just took half of his health in. Probably one charged shot now. And that rain of arrows looks to clear the way a little bit more. Of course, our spirit ability is doing a little bit less to structures like walkers and such. It's not nothing. Here comes the Wraith, though. Telekinesis used there pretty much straight away by Jamside, but they don't want to stick around for the fight. They just want to keep this Walker alive.
Oh my
We're going upstairs, though. Stein Idol desperately used here, and Piggy is in deep trouble. That's 2 charged shots, and there's more where that came from. Nice dodge away from the Kutsu Bomb. Divine Barrier also now being popped by Piggy, trying to get away with the airdrop, but this Grey Talon is getting out of hand.
More like a Piggy bank here, as that's a lot of souls picked up as well. See, the ultimate coming down of Abrams here gets a stun onto 2, but there's not going to be a charge off. That's on cooldown right now. He's going to be forced to back away here as they're making their own push and own play onto the lane 1 Walker.
Yeah, but again, I just think this is going to be a tough ask for Pojilaya Skumbriya. They didn't initially look like they were set up for this, but now they're able to break through. Sheer weight of numbers essentially gets them there, and Alex turning up put some huge damage down.
Who has the stronger beam? Sorry, just seeing them attack each other.
It's legitimately a Kamehameha beam lock. It really only just tickled again because we nerfed our spirit damage on towards objectives. Thank God for that. And so it's taking a while for PS to push this down. So much that the reinforcements have arrived. Prestis is on the scene, was able to push them back to a degree, but we have at least 1 Walker taken on the side of Pojilaya Skumbriya.
And with something we've seen for Parivision now, and previously in last week it was Sherrick, it's the use of that last stand on Warden to just try to get that Walker down. Like, the Walker is a higher priority than saving the ultimate for a fight that may or may not happen, and we saw together do exactly that. Eventually getting that first Walker, obviously not getting a flex off the back of that yet, since you're still waiting for the second Walker to come down, but at least keeps that pressure and also keeps one side of the map now open that you can keep pressured and that PS have to really give attention to.
We have the improved spirit picked up here for the Grey Talon. I don't know if you remember the full Grey Talon, the full spirit build Grey Talon, where you there was like a bug, I think, where if you had an owl on the battlefield, it gave you an assist for kills because it saw them. So you could sit in spawn and just spam the owl and just get a disgusting amount of souls. That was a good time.
I mean, is that how you did it? Because you can't really farm them?
Someone did it to me, actually. And I was like, honestly, yes. But also, someone did it to me and I was hella mad. I'm like, wait. And I looked at the demo and they never left their spawn. I was like, what is going on? They're literally just owling out of spawn.
The real question is, did you win or lose that match?
Oh, we lost bad because when they came out of spawn, Jason, they had like insane items. Like, it was disgusting. I think I died to 1 charge shot. I was like, okay, this is cool. I'm done. I'm good.
I mean, I remember doing the special build just to get the Christmas skin. We had to do like over 1,000 damage with a charge shot, and that tanked my my rating quite a bit. But it was quite fun hitting people for like 1,200, 1,400.
And you threw all those games, and now you have a badge to show for it, Jason. So worth, honestly.
Yeah. I was hoping it was a permanent skin, but I got messed up. We just see Piggy though getting ganked over in lane 4 here. I'm not sure why they're coming to lane 4. Like, this is not, you're not really gonna get anything off of this kill, honestly, besides just the souls from killing him, because you're not realistically gonna push lane 4. If you're gonna be anywhere on the map to look for ganks, you should be looking towards like lane 1, 2, or 3 to get some control in your flex slot.
What? Piggy took 1.3k to 1 charge arrow. Saf has 20k souls. I mean, I just saw them buy the improved spirit, so that does make sense. Once that Boundless gets online, the guy is going to absolutely ruin you. Curious to see how that looks a little bit later on. Grey Talon is no slouch. You do not want to let that guy get fed. That is so gross.
Yeah, especially if you can find the person with no spirit resist on the enemy team. And he basically hit Piggy for half his HP, not to mention 8k souls in the lead. You're hitting like a stat check territory as well, where you just have so much more raw damage, and Piggy just doesn't have the health being so far behind. But we're gonna see a big fight here, Mitch.
Yeah, absolutely. Same. Just going to get blown to smithereens here. Taz a little bit too strong. Cold front popped as they're trying to push up here onto this lane. 1 Walker. Pojilaya Skumbriya looking pretty scary. In comes the Abrams. Nice little melee follow-up there, but it's just too much damage coming back the other way. Alex, in the meantime, trying to split push that lane number 1, but I think this one has gotten a little bit too out of hand already. Taz, too effective across the field here. Slowing people down together is also that critical mass of being absolutely terrifying on this Warden. And as fed as Jamside is, it's hard to see them being set up for success. Right now, I mean, they're solid. They're trying to defend this Walker here in lane number 2, but on their own, it's just not possible. Very quickly, Pojilaya Skumbriya found themselves with no walkers to their name.
So we see Parivision get 2 flex slots. They obviously could have said, okay, forget this last walker. Let's go mid boss. But I actually like the choice of them to go for this as Pressus, he's just on a little bit of HP. The tornado not going to quite, actually the tornado did land. The Pressus will go down either way, and this should be an easy pickup for play with me. So mid boss, yeah, I kind of like how they didn't go for it. Instead went for the map control, because this leaves things way open for them now to take mid boss later on and bait in PS. But thinking about like Sync's position there, like he should not be getting caught out because he is the playmaker for the team right now. They need him to hit a hook to have a chance to kill Stone and Parivision to stop a push from happening.
Oh my God. Improved burst. Misty vulnerability also picked up here. Bro, okay. Yeah, Great Talon absolutely online here. That is a terrifying amount of damage. And if you don't have some degree of spirit resist, you're going to be in trouble. At least he had like a decent amount of spirit shield here for Saint. Good old 600. So that is going to help stave off that combat barrier, actually helping out there a bit. Knockdown also taken here by this Bebop. So we are seeing Pojilaya trying to itemize in a direction that could limit Saf's influence, but there are a long way ahead. Jam side as well, looking scary. 26k souls, looking extremely brolic at the moment. Wolfie at least able to turn in that urn. And what do Parivision have to say about this, Jason? Saf is on the way. Oh my goodness. Okay, that's an Abrams, for God's sake.
Oh, we do see Ivy looking to get away. What? Hello?
Oh no.
Like, okay, yeah, you can talk about Jamside having 27,000 souls all day, but if he doesn't have a team because they're getting one shot by Sap with his AWP here, like, you're not going to have a chance to win these fights.
It's so rough. Okay, mid-boss time now. Or at least feigning mid-boss time.
Oh, yeah, the bait.
Yeah. Anyone caught out by this, though? Not really. I mean, yeah, ban-wise was kind of here because Alex, okay, trying to cause some problems. Oh, frozen shelter. That's a problem. I like this tech is very cute from the Calico to try and escape. Getting up on top of that ledge here, but Tornado comes in here for play with me, and the damage is just far too much to resist. There'll be more, of course. Okay, Sam. Dealing some serious deeps. And here comes the guided out, of course, which has a 1.0 spirit scaling, which is a lot considering that we are stacking spirit plus mystic vulnerability here. I think he's looking for the Bebop. Now we've run out of time on that one. People forget charge shot has a 1.6 times spirit scaling on it. It's very good.
It's if you can get ahead like this, you can like 1 or 2 shot anyone on the other team that isn't like super fed. We're gonna see a contest here. I feel like PS have to go for the contest. They're just like, gonna give it away, and it's gonna be a free take for Parivision. But I feel like this is just the beginning to the death of. Oh my God, Piggy!
He's dead here, I think. It's gonna be a little bit tough for Piggy to get it. Okay, Tekis, we like that. He gets on out of there. Search power also for the Great Talon. So yeah, hitting very, very hard. I mean, what mechanism do you have to actually pressure down this Great Talon? You have a knockdown on your Bebop that's at 16k souls, almost 10 behind Saf. Like, who answers this threat?
It's Wolfie, right? I feel like it's been him to try to jump in with his Majestic League to catch him out, but he doesn't have the damage or the sustainability to survive a charge shot to his face.
That's one shrine down. Last stand being used here. And you can see very quickly Alex having to jump away from that action now. Frozen shelter pop. Wolfie caught inside of it. Good damage. Good job, Saf. That's disgusting. That's absolutely filth. Cube for a time as they go a little bit low here. Rejuvenator active on it. And yeah, Saf just wants to see how much damage he does. He sticks around to take that charge shot and does eventually fall. Back in 20 odd seconds. So no harm, no foul here to Parivision, who, again, only about 10k soul lead here, but it's where the souls are that is making this fight look so one-sided. Where is Jamside? Get those souls in a position and turn it into damage.
I mean, you're saying it's a 10k soul difference, but it does not feel like a 10k soul difference if Saf is able to like 2-shot most of your team with his charge shot. I mean, like you're very right though with Jamside. The problem I think for him is like he can't really like peek easily. One charge shot and he's half HP, like guaranteed. A second charge shot and you're dead. I don't know how he can be effective with Wraith from that soul lane right now, considering like the Talon just has so much more poke at a distance.
Yeah, and I'm reminded by Xylas in the chat as well that once you are rank 3 in the charge shot, it's 2.5 times scaling on your spirit. So that is, yeah, pretty insane. Okay, Jamside. Oh, man, they get into the fight. Almost 30k souls on this rank. Pretty legitimate threat here. Okay, Al. Okay, the damage wasn't not quite as exciting. Yeah, I mean, they've nerfed that. You can no longer like spam Al and get Omega value from it, but still. Shrine down, and it's just the patron here. Return of Shadows being used there by Alex. Trying to avoid this level of pressure now. No ultimates to make use of here for Pojilaya Skumbriya. 5 players on Parivision that have the Rejuvenator. Bandwise drops here as Prestus eventually gives up the Ghost, but there's so much more threat where that came from. And we have knocked the patron, folks. Now, one more push will get Parivision into the money match.
That's what's kind of saying is like, I feel like Parivision can just run at you. Like we talked about in the draft, they have such a beefy enough front line with Prestus, with Tass, with Together, even Play With Me and Litz who can sustain them. Like for PS, they just don't have the damage to eat through the front line. And I guess like Jamside Siphon Bullets would be like a huge pickup for you to actually help eliminate that front line. But by the time you've been able to do that, since you're the only real damage dealer right now, I feel like for the team, Saf has already dismantled your entire team. So it's tough for him. It's tough to say that, like, why aren't you carrying right now? Because I feel like the team comp isn't built around him to be able to do that, even with this 31,000 souls.
No, you also need like a front line that is durable enough to soak so much of this. But Bandwise is one of the poorest soul-wise heroes on this Pojilaya Skumbriya roster. Saint also is, look, I mean, very, very difficult to even get those hooks because you play a certain way if you're Saf around the possibility of getting hooked in by this guy. You know, you can absolutely avoid that. Pristine Emblem there, you notice on the Geist here, of course, Alk Fire still the go-to for a lot of these support item carriers.
That was, I don't know if you saw that. So the hook came in from Saint, but a rescue beam came in right after from Litz to stop the hook from actually landing. So they get the urn turn in, like just some like small little micro things like that. Like Lich is really showing why I think, in my opinion, he's one of the best support players out there in EU.
Is the rescue beam sort of warpstone tech still in the game where you blink at the end of it and like fling them a long way?
I don't know, actually. Okay. Maybe ZP knows if he's still here, but I don't actually know. And I don't know if you want to invest the warpstone to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you would build specifically for that. I do think, I think that might have gotten fixed, but I'm not 100% sure. What I will say here, though, is that everything Saf has been doing has really been powered by the Parivision front line, where you compare just the economy allocation between the two teams. Saf has had enormous room to work with. And also part of that, too, is that, you know, we talked in the pre-draft about, hey, you know, you're going to pick the Bebop because you're expecting the Talon to come into play here. It hasn't been a great game for Saint in finding Saf, and that's part of Saf just being able to stay super far back and behind the front line, and Saint would have to make nearly impossible hooks in some of these cases to even draw Saf in, right? So all in all, this is kind of following the script we thought, where Pojilaya Skumbriya just didn't get far enough ahead in the early to mid game, and now it's just really them struggling to find areas to like maybe get a pick off. But in a straight up 6v6, Parivision can run at them, create space for Saf, and watch as people just get chunked from miles away.
There are some serious power spikes here coming up item wise as well. I think I just saw the Mystic Reverb picked up by Saf.
Oh God.
Yeah, it's going to be a big problem. Obviously gives them that great pushing power, but people forget, like, it obviously gives you that Spirit Lifesteal, which is pretty massive, and radiate damage off those charge shots, which is very good. Actually, if we got a moment, can we get a full item check on Saf observers? I want to see just how messed up this build is.
You do also really quick have a Siphon Bullets for Jam side, which we were kind of talking about before to help deal with the front line. Saint also has Toxic Bullets, which again does max HP percent damage over time, which is really important.
You guys are the goats. Thank you. So yeah, we got that improved burst there. Mystic Reverb also picked up Mystic Vulnerability. We've got the improved Spirit. So we weren't rushing Boundless here. I think you definitely fancy the Reverb a little bit more. Anyway, I've got a fight on the way. Up in the air, of course. The Abrams is trying to go. Did actually have that. Okay, so many of these ethereal shifts being picked up, but didn't really help the Abrams in that situation. Bandwise, that's a problem when your frontliner is considered a tasty morsel for your opposition, Jason. I would not want to be in PS's position.
I mean, even being a frontliner that has ethereal shift. I mean, I'm not saying ethereal shift's bad, but I feel like for Abrams, that's not one of the most ideal items that you need to pick or that you should be picking up. And I feel like he's been kind of forced into picking it up because the amount of damage is coming his way. He can't be a frontline for his team when he's basically the only person in that front line. So I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of the pickup for it, but I understand it. I feel like Parivision, they had a chance to close out this game quite a while ago, but with them going for their mid boss, I feel like this actually could possibly be a throw. Like, I feel like they should have won already maybe 5 minutes ago, but they're giving PS the opportunity to go for a steal here and potentially a big team fight. But it's all about Saf. Got to keep the eyes on him.
Yeah. Get the Grey Talon set up for success is going to be crucial. Here comes a supply drop. Bomb comes in. It's just a little bit too late. Piggy not able to get any stuns off that. Rejuve picked up, and there's Saf just rinsing Jam side. And Saint here, probably not in a position to do too much either. They are on the run. Hit very, very hard. Together's the one who gains that kill credit. This, folks, should be the game at this point. Parivision are far, far too strong. I was even looking at Tass's build, and you've got basically all the things you could ever want as Viscous. Like, he's even got improved burst, for God's sake. Guy is hitting extremely hard there as well. Of course, Flask over towards that Piggy direction. They will be able to survive, getting back in the spawn, shrugging off that tick damage. But again, there's going to be more where that came from. In this Parivision, Pojilaya Skumbriya reformed recently and doing pretty well so far, like in the one-win tournament. But this game, unfortunately, not their game. They do not have a comp that plays well from behind, and they don't get off to a hot enough start as Parivision advancing to our best of 3 against Virtus Pro.
You know, and I'm not going to judge Pojilaya Skumbriya too harshly either, because I feel like Parivision are clear-cut the #2 team in EU. Easily. Like, I feel like them and Virtus Pro could trade any day of the week, but I feel like Virtus Pro still ekes them out just by a bit. But for them to come together as still kind of a more newly formed team, still working out how their draft's going to play out, how all their different hero pools can kind of mesh together, I'm not surprised to see the result. And we did see some good things, but clearly Parivision was definitely the stronger team today.
Well, there it is. I'm pretty blown away by it. I think that's probably one of the best Grey Talon showings that we've seen so far, at least in DFN. It's pretty egregious. Let's bring ZP in here as well. Chance to circle back and catch up, because I think something that you were mentioning, ZP, is this, the front line of Parivision was what really allowed Saf to basically fire those arrows down with impunity and never, as far as we could see, suffer any pressure.
Yeah, I mean, it was a 2-for-1 there too, where not only was the front line of Parivision working well to just make it so Saf basically never had to worry about anything the entire game, but also you stop and think the other side of the equation where Jam's side was pretty well farmed up. I mean, in economy allocation, Pojilaya Skumbriya basically put everything in the Jam side basket, but that was a basket that wasn't able to put out effective damage throughout a lot of this game, because you just look at the positioning that would happen, it would be Wraith in hot retreat a lot of the time, simply because they were getting run at by a Viscous, they were getting run at by a Warden, and all the while Saf's sitting here just, sitting back, lining up a shot, firing, and basically taking out Pocket in all of 1.5 hits. It was absolutely brutal, and this was just one on positioning and frontline, pure and simple.
Yeah, I think we're obviously talking a lot about the front line giving the opportunity for Saf to get in positions, hit these shots, but I think Saf deserves a lot of credit for his position in particular. Like in that last mid-boss fight, who was the first person he was able to kill? Jam side, their most fed player, the Wraith, the only one they really ever had to worry about, because he positioned himself really well to effectively eliminate that player right off the bat. So I think he deserves a lot of credit, obviously, as well as the front line.
This end screen is going to be quite decisive for you folks. We are going to, of course, show you that and give you an idea of exactly how it sort of went down. I think personally, we're gonna talk about our player of the match first. I think it's a pretty easy one for you guys, and then we're gonna jump into the post-game statistical breakdown. Let's talk about your player of the match, though, folks. Presented by Intel in this play-in match for Parivision. Any votes, guys? Thoughts? It's gotta be Saf, right?
Yeah, Saf is quite literally the only person you could pick here where, look, there's someone in there that's going to go like, well, you guys just talked about the front line making space. Shouldn't it be some, like, play with me? Or, along those lines. Like, well, as Jason mentioned, Saf still had to connect on the shots. Saf's execution was sublime all game long. The primary source of damage for Parivision, or at the very least, the primary source of burst damage that was actually killing people. And it was just over and over again. Someone turns the corner and just goes down. I mean, it was so decisive, it was making you think that we went less hero shooter and more tack shooter. It just unbelievable. Also, I mean, good owls on the highlight, both for map control and just picking people off. But you see Piggy here just desperately looking for any way out, and almost jukes him in this moment, but still, there's just no escaping Saf. Laser focused accuracy the entire game.
Mitch, I always hear about, the big green in some other games like Counter-Strike, the AWP, and the big green is the charge shots. I mean, he is just pummeling from distance. And I feel like that's one of the big advantages that a Grey Talon's going to give you, is you don't even need to be really near the fight, because your charge shot isn't going to have damage fall off. Whether you're right in front of them or you're a million miles away from them, you're still going to do the same amount of damage, which gives you that safety as long as you can hit those shots to really punish people.
Yeah, I mean, these arrows are hitting for like 800 plus, right? I think 1.3k was what Piggy claimed off one arrow, which is, again, I don't know if Piggy was ever really able to build some proper spirit resist in that game. 32,000 player damage here for Saf. You can tell it's not a spirit build because that purple bar is a long way towards the right there. Really strong showing. I do think that, like, yeah, TAS had a pretty nice build as well. They got very fed. They were able to basically just live the end game fantasy for, your viscous players. Roll around, be a nuisance, carry the important items, right, as well. Like, yeah, you had your pristine emblem, you had a lot of those good stats, you had a heroic aura, you got the Alk Flask, but you also got to build into like improved burst and, be pretty punishing when you roll in with that goo ball. So kind of having utility, but also being a legitimate threat, having some damage in those fights, rolling it back and forth, and all the farming the Jam side did. And they did a lot of it. They weren't able to really convert that into any meaningful player damage.
Yeah, and that's specifically what I was going to notice here is that, look, when you look at the damage numbers across the board, a lot of it kind of makes sense for the hero being played and the farm given, but 37k souls top in the game, only 18k damage. Look, I'm not even saying that Jamside had a bad game per se, but what I am saying is that the game plan that Parivision went in for was one that did not give Jamside enough time to actually get into a comfortable position and simply lay down the damage. It did not happen. Jamside was running for their life most of this game, and it was because of the efforts of TAS, of Together, of Prestus, making things just so impossible to actually stay in and do what a Wraith would like to do.
What do you think? Exactly. Is this notable, the lack of objective damage on Piggy and Jamside, considering Jamside was in a solo lane?
I would say it's not really that big of a deal, at least in my eyes, just based off the fact that they were pressured from, I feel like 8 minutes on. Like, they were constantly on the back foot. They weren't allowed to really push up and go for objectives. And also, I mean, Jamside, he kind of needed to be there with his team. We saw Alex split pushing lane 4 for a Walker. We saw Wolfie as well trying to push for a little bit of damage onto those Guardians. But considering the pace and the flow of how that game played out, it's not too surprising for me because he just never got the opportunity, and they never really got the opportunity to make a push happen.
Well, there it is, folks. That is your end screen. And it will be Parivision advancing to take on Virtus Pro in our $1,000 money match presented by Intel. So we're going to have that for you just after the break. Don't go too far, folks. We get into the business end of things here in our Deadlock Fight Night number 13 for Europe. We'll see you shortly.